During the Dark Romanticism period, Edgar Allan Poe wrote a short story called The Man of the Crowd. This short story was through the point of view of a gentleman that had been sick for some time and becomes interested in a strange-looking old man. He sees this old man through the window of the coffee house in London and then proceeds to follow him into the streets with all the other people. There are many characters and side characters within this short story. Some characters being the businessmen, noblemen, merchants, attorneys, stock drivers, eutropids, and gamblers. The more described characters were people like the clerks, which were young gentlemen with tight coats, bright boots, well-oiled hair, and supercilious lips. Another type was upper clerks. These were known by their coats, pantaloons, and of black and brown, made to sit comfortably with white cravats or waistcoats, broad, solid-looking shoes, and a thick hose or gaiters. And finally, there was the decrepit old man, some 65 or 70 years of age, a countenance which at once was arrested. The story begins through the eyes of a gentleman watching people through the coffee house window as they are coming and going. The gentleman then notices an older gentleman that walks oddly through the crowd and decides to follow him, only to realize the older gentleman is walking with the people, overtracing his steps and keeping up with anyone who is walking. One of my favorite quotes in this short story was, "Here are some secrets which do not permit themselves to be told. Men die nightly in their beds, wringing the hands of ghostly confessors, and looking them piteously in the eyes, die with despair of heart and convulsion of throat, on account of the hideousness of mysteries which will not suffer themselves to be revealed." An obvious conflict towards readers would be the curiosity of the character that had been observing the crowd through the coffee shop window and how it relates to the older gentleman walking the streets. I'm sure that Edgar Allan Poe used a lot more figurative language in his short story, but the one that stood out to me the most was the personification he used towards the beginning, when he said, "mysteries which will not suffer themselves to be revealed." Because mysteries don't really have feelings, so they can't suffer. And I just thought that it was interesting that he gave them that personality trait. One theme that really stood out to me throughout this short story was the theme of loneliness. You can see it through the narrator point of view when he's sitting there alone in the coffee shop and observing the crowd. And you can also see it through the older man as he is constantly trying to find different people to walk along with. I would think that the tone of this story is just the overall curiosity in both the narrator and what I can see through the old man, and how he's constantly going with different people, he's constantly retracing his steps, overlapping himself, and I think that the curiosity in this story really displays the tone of what Edgar Allan Poe was going for. I believe that the conflict was resolved when the narrator realized that the older gentleman is the type of genius of deep crime. He refuses to be alone, and he is the man of the crowd. I would say that this short story would be appealing to modern day audiences based on the curiosity and the feelings of loneliness presented through this short story, just because in today's modern world there are a lot of focus on those two emotions, and just the way that Edgar Allan Poe's story was written, I believe that anybody in modern day would be interested in this story, both because of the development of the narrator and the development of how he just transitioned it to be, oh, I see what this man is doing. He's following anyone that's going to make him not be alone. So I know this wasn't one of the questions you had asked, but I just want to add that after reading this story, I believe the older gentleman is walking with crowds just to mask who he is. Not only that, though, but to mask out, or for lack of a better word, just to hide from all of the horrible things that he has done or said and the crimes he's committed. And it was really interesting to me that he just hid with crowds of people. And I can't really understand why Edgar Allan Poe wrote it this way. I was expecting it to be like a star character, but it was this older gentleman that hid in the shadows but followed people around in the streets of London. And I just think that it was very interesting the way he wrote his short story.